Okay guys, welcome to this tutorial where we're going to be reviewing the fundamental concepts behind Belote Maniee. So how do we play Belote Maniee? Just like any trick game, Belote Maniee has basically a bunch of cards that have each different points associated with their value, right? It goes from the 7 to the ace, where you can see the 7, the 8, and the 9 have 0 points, and the ace has 11 points. The object of the game, based on those cards, is simply to make as many points as possible. How do you make some points? Well, the fundamental mechanics behind Belote Maniee, just like any similar game, is the trick. It's the same for bridge, for hearts, for other variants of the Belote game. The trick is what allows you to win the cards that are in the hand of your opponent. So a trick always starts with the first player leading the trick. For instance, me here playing the King of Spades, and follows directly with the opponent playing or countering the trick with another card. For instance, here the Nine of Spades. The trick finally ends by evaluating the outcome of who has the card that has the highest value, right? The biggest amount of points, and the player who played this specific card wins not only their points, but the points of their opponent as well. You can see here that I get like the 4 points of my king plus the 0 points of Annie's 9. In Belote Maniee, we deal the cards as follow. We give 8 cards to each player that are basically in their hand, so it means that the other player cannot see them. We have 8 cards that are face up, that both players can see, and we have 8 cards that are face down, that no one can see. The cards that are face down are basically revealed whenever a card that is face up is being played, and we're gonna see that while we go through a game. Basically, from my perspective, this is what I can see. I can see my own cards, I can see the face-up cards, and I obviously cannot see anything else. So we're just gonna make it practical by playing a game. I'm just starting the game by playing my first card. Okay, and the question is now, what are different scenarios that could happen based on the cards that I decide to play and the cards that Annie decides to counter with? So the base scenario is the one that we're seeing here, where I decide to play with the ace of spades, as you could see previously, to which Annie decides to counter with a queen of spades. She's essentially giving me 3 points, as the ace is the highest card with the highest value. I'll let you look at the other cases, but a very interesting one is what you can see here on the bottom left, with me deciding to start a trick with a 10 of diamonds, and Annie deciding to counter it with her 9 of hearts. And the question here is, as you can see, I win the 10 points, but what happens in general when a player decides to play a suit that is different from the suit that the first player decided to start the trick with? That brings us to the fundamental rule of Belote. When a player starts a trick with a specific suit, the other player always has to look in their hand if they have a similar suit. If they do have it, they have to play it. If they don't, they can play any other card, but they always lose the trick automatically. So with that in mind, let's just go through it. As you can see from Annie's perspective, when I'm leading a trick with the ace of spades, she basically has a few choices that she can make. She could start by playing one of the 2 spades that she has in her hand and that are basically playable, the queen and the 8. And the question here is, what is it that you want to do between the 2? Her reasoning is gonna go something like this. She's gonna be thinking, okay, how do I minimize the amount of points that I want to give him? And in this scenario, the answer to this question is pretty straightforward, because she can choose to give me 3 points or 0 points, right? Based on the value of the cards. And so here specifically, what she's going to want to do is play the 8 so that she doesn't give me the 3 points associated with the queen. What she's done essentially here in the world of Belote is she's protected her queen. She played a low card at a specific suit to protect a card that has a higher value. And that's something we're going to see over and over again, because it's fundamental to winning the game. Now, unfortunately for Annie, it turns out that not only did I have the best card you could have in the game, the ace, but I also have the 10 of the spade. And that means that my attack is basically relentless, and I'm just keep trying to get her queen that I can see is here. Now, Obviously, I cannot see how many spades she has in her game, right? So I'm taking a risk. Maybe she has another spade that she could use again to protect her queen. But in this case, I'm pretty lucky. She doesn't have any spades left. She only has the queen of spade, and the fundamental rule of Belote says that she has to play her spade. So in this case, my attack was quite successful. I played 2 best cards. I managed to get 3 points out of this, and I'm pretty happy about it. Now, here's the thing. Somewhere in the game, lurking around, is still the king of spade, which is now the top card. It's now the best card that you can find at spade. Now, either it's in her hand or it's in the cards face down, because I cannot see it, right? So the question here is, what do I want to do? And I think that I want to keep playing spade. As you can see, I'm going with the jack of spade. Well, with the possibility, the very real possibility that she still has the king in there and that she would make her 4 points plus 2, so her 6 points. But there's also this possibility that it's kind of like below here, right? And so what I want to do is make my 2 points of the jack as fast as I can before she maybe turn it up in her cards that are down, right? So, well, actually we can compute the probability that the king is in her hand or in the face down cards, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 divided by the 14 cards that are still not possible to see from my perspective. And I think that the risk is justified here, so I'm just going to play the jack of spade and see what happens. Well, it turns out that she didn't have the king of spade, right? It's not that I can see her game, it's just that I can see that she's playing a 9 of hearts. So she's just basically saying, like, I don't have any spades left, and I'm pretty happy about it. Even though I'm not making any points at hearts, this is 0 points, I'm making my own 2 points. I know that she doesn't have the spade, and maybe it's gonna come up in my own game. So now, unfortunately, I cannot keep playing spade for the rest of my life. I'm gonna start playing diamond for a few reasons. Don't worry too much about the strategy of the game for now. I just want to make sure that you have the fundamentals correct and that you understand what's going on. We'll definitely come back to the strategy and more like advanced thinking at a later stage, right? For now, it's enough to realize that I have 2 pretty strong cards, like the 10 of hearts and the 10 of diamond. And I can see already that she has an ace of hearts in her game. So it's pretty obvious that I don't want to play the 10 here because she would just eat it alive with her ace. And kind of in the same reasoning, even though I cannot be sure that she has the ace of diamond in her hand, it could actually be still in one of the face down cards. I don't want to take the risk that early in the game, you know, like I don't want to play the 10 of diamond that early with the risk of her eating it quickly as well. So instead of playing aggressive and taking a lot of risk, I'm just going to play more defensive. I'm just going to like pass the card that is somewhat guaranteed to give her back the hand. And I'm doing this with the jack of diamond, which I'm assuming will allow her to win the trick. So Annie has a few diamonds in her game. She could have played the ace, the queen, the 7 of the king. Basically, the decision boils down to playing a lower card and leaving the hand or leaving the next turn back to me, or playing a card that has a higher value than the jack, like for instance the king that she's playing, and taking back the control. Here she's decided to take back the control. She's doing it with the king and not with the ace. Well, think about it that way. In the same way that I didn't want to play the 10 because I was scared that she might have the ace in her hand, which she actually has. She doesn't want to play her ace too early as well, because from her perspective, I have a very juicy 10 here that she could eat, but I do have probably some kind of protections that I have here as well that would prevent her from getting it if she were to play the ace. So that's very tricky, and that's already getting pretty advanced in the strategy. For now, it's enough to realize that she's making 6 points, which is great, and she's keeping her ace for a bit later. Let's see what happens next. Now she's deciding to attack at clubs. Why is she doing that? Well, she has a pretty strong game at clubs. She sees a juicy king of clubs just laying around here. Well, she's just gonna try her luck and see if she can have it. Unfortunately for her, I do have a protection. I have the 7, it allows me to cut short the attack and give her 0 points. And as you can see, she's kind of like retaliating. It's a very similar situation with what happened earlier at Spade, where I put a lot of pressure very quickly on her Queen of Spade. Here she's putting a lot of pressure on my King, but unfortunately for her, it's not successful because I have 2 protection in this case. So I am now top cards at King, and I successfully managed to fend off a 2-card attack on it. She doesn't want to let me stay at top position or at top cards at clubs. She actually wants to probably stay herself at top card by having the queen here and by forcing me to play my king of clubs. So I have to play it now because that's the only club that I have left. I'm trying to clean off the ace of heart, right? I'm trying to give her some kind of like appetizer, right? Like 4 points so that she plays her ace, so that I can at a later stage play my 10 safely without the constant threat of having the ace killing me on the 10. Let's see, she is actually playing the jack of heart instead of playing the ace. So what she's doing here is, she's basically saying, I would rather you have like 2 points right now because I'm pretty sure that I can kill your 10 of hearts at a later stage. It's quite cocky from her. I don't know if it's gonna work, but let's see. Sometimes it pays off at Belote to take some risks like this. I'm giving her back the hand with the 8 of hearts. This is the lowest card. Well, it's the second lowest card, but because I have the 7 as well, I'm sure that I'm gonna give her back the control of the game. She's taking with the queen. Now she's attacking with clubs. She knows that there is no clubs anywhere around, so she's making her points. I don't have any clubs, so I'm playing spades. She's now playing the king of spade that turned out was actually in her game, so she's making those 4 points. She's probably very happy about this. And now, finally, the suspense is at its maximum. She is deciding to play the ace of hearts. Obviously, she doesn't know whether I have protections or not. She's gonna find out very quickly that I still had 1 protection on my 10. Here, I'm making my 10 of diamonds, I'm making my 10 of hearts, I'm making my jack, and I'm finally giving her the last trick, which in Belote is called the 10 de der, which is basically 10 points that goes to the person that makes the final trick. Okay, so now we're just accounting for all the points that we made through the tricks. And as you can see, it's pretty sick, but I lost the game by 8 points, right? It was a very, very tight game. She had a good game, I had a good one as well. She had a bunch of aces that you can see here. It's always hard to win when, she has like the top cards in pretty much every suit, except the spades. But she played very well, very defensively. She gave me the control at the right time. She, she attacked my cards correctly, so no regrets, she deserves it, and the only thing we can do is applaud her. Now, here's an interesting thing. What Annie did essentially here is she won at sans atout. She won at a version of the game that is called no trumps. Why is it called no trumps? Well, no trumps, or sans atout in French, is the version of the game where all the suits have the following point system. Ace, the highest, 7, 8, 9, the lowest. We implicitly played this version to start somewhere, but it's not the only version that exists. And the way that we decide how we play, or like what is the point system that we're gonna settle on, is by playing the contract, is by betting on different suits or different versions up until we settle on something. So, as you can see, in the same way that you have no trumps with the following point system here, what you could also have is all trumps with this point system there, where fundamentally the game changes because the jack has now a lot more points associated to the cards, and the 9 becomes also the second more powerful card that you can have in the game. The direct impact of this, as you can see, is that it pumps up the number of points that you can make very, very quickly. Now, other versions of the game you can bet on is different suits, different trumps. You can play on clubs, diamond, heart, and spade, And what it means when you bet on those versions of the games is that the suit that you decide to be the trump, so for instance, if you decide to bet on heart, the heart suit is going to become the trumping suit. So only this suit is going to be here standing in the trump with the same point system, let's say, as all trump. And all of the other suits are going to be in the no trump system, right? Now, the interesting thing is the way you go about betting on this. As you can see, you can bet, but you can only go up in the sense of you can only bet on a stronger suit than the one that your opponent has been betting on before. Here is how you go about betting on the contract. Each player has 2 rounds of betting. As you can see here in a practical way, Annie, for instance, starts the game and decides to play at heart. She's essentially saying, okay, I want the contract to be at heart here. She's using her first bid to say heart is going to be in the trumping suit. Now, you can see the point system associated with this decision, and you can see very, very quickly that I'm not very happy about that, and I would much rather prefer to play at spade, which is why I'm saying spade. I use my first round of bidding to basically bet on my first contract, to which Annie is saying pass. What is she doing when she says pass? She's using her second round of bidding to say, okay, fine, I accept anything you want. I will not be the one who settles the contract, so I will not be the one who has the last word on the contract. I let you go have whatever it is, in this case, spade, if you want to have spade. And so I used my last round of bidding to pass as well, so that the contract is finally settled on spade. Now, why is this contract thing so important? Besides defining the way that we play the game by defining the point system that we're going to play, the contract also does something else. It tells us how we're going to count the points at the end of the game. So when the player settling the contract ends up successfully winning the game, what he gets is the difference of the points that you can make in the game. But when the player settling the contract fails to win the game, so he effectively just loses the tricks, loses the points, and has a lower amount of points than the opponent, what happens here is that he loses the sum of the game. So why is that significant? Well, as you can see, there is a significant amount of risk associated with betting on contract, right? You can win a moderate amount of points if you actually comply with your bets, but you can lose a tremendous amount of points if you end up losing or not complying with the contract that you bet on. It's a trade-off, right? Because when you bet on a contract, you're basically saying, okay, let's play a version of the game that suits my game the best, right? That's why I want to bet on spade. But it also puts you at an enormous risk of losing a lot of points to your opponent. So it's a very strategic decision that you may need to make quickly. Another and final concept that is very important is the concept of the trump. So remember at the beginning when I told you that the basic rule of Belote is that when you have a suit that's similar to the suit of the first card that the player is leading the trick with, you have to play it. Well, it's still the case. You still have to play the queen of clubs in this scenario here, right? But the question arises here. What happens when we're playing in a contract at a trump contract? For instance, here, spades would be the same for the other suit. And we are in this situation where I'm leading with a card that Annie doesn't have any similar suits to. She doesn't have any clubs. What we said before is that regardless of what she would do, she would lose her points, right? So she would play the queen so that she loses a minimum amount of points. She doesn't lose the 11 points here. Well, it's still the case that at heart she would lose 11 points. So it's still the case that the fundamental rule apply. But because we're playing a trumping suit here, the suit that is in the trump is allowing you to do something special. It allows you to trump the card. It allows you to win the trick even though you didn't follow with a similar suit. So I would get here the trick. I would get the 4 points by trumping the king of clubs. And I would also get the hand, or get the control of the game. So I would be the next person to play, let's say, in the next trick. And to be very precise, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be the one. Annie would be the one to play and to win the trick because she's using the trump. now that we know what the trump is, let's revisit the contract system from the perspective of trumps. The more trumps you have, the more you can earn points in a new way, and the more likely it is that you're going to win the game. So when Annie is betting at hearts, the reason why I was so unenthusiastic about it is that you can see that my trumps, even though I have some trumps, so that's already great. Like I have 3 trumps, it's quite powerful. But I have like very low trumps. I have the king, the 8, and the 7. So I'm not very, very happy about those trumps. Another system that suits me much better is spade, because as you can see, at spade I have the strongest trump. I have the jack, I have the 10, the ace. Those are much stronger cards to play a game with. And that's why I'm willing to take the risk to lose a lot of points, because I feel that I can really, really win this game at spade. She passes because she doesn't want to go up, she doesn't want to play no trumps, she doesn't want to play all trumps, which is a very, very risky thing to do. You can lose a lot of points. And that's how we get to settle basically at spade. Now, here's a few scenarios that could have happened on, like while we go through the betting phases. I'll let you pause the video for a second so that you can, take a look at it and figure out, like, make sure that you understand everything. I just want to grab your attention for a second. As you can see here, this is a very specific scenario where Annie decides to pass first, and I would decide to counter with another pass. What happens here is that nothing happens. No one wins any points, we just deal new cards. Now let's play the same game as before, but from this whole new version of the game that is spade, and you're gonna see how the dynamics change quite dramatically. One important thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that when you're playing a card that is in the trump, whether it's like an individual trump like here at spade, or if you had bet on all trump, where all the cards are in the trump, let's say. When you play, for instance, here the queen of spade, if she wants to play it, the opponent always has to counter not just with a card of the same suit, but also with a card that has a higher value than the card being played, if you can play it. This is different from no trump, where we could play a card in the similar suit, but above or below, regardless of their point value. So here I'm starting to play with the jack of diamond. Instead of playing very aggressively like I did at no trumps before, here I want to play much more defensively. I want to give her the control. I want to see, I want to test the water. I want to see what she's going to do. Like just start sparring a little bit and see where it goes, right? Like I'm not going to like run head first and play some kind of like spade and risk her having, some kind of like 9 of spade and making 14 points very quickly. Like I don't want to do that. I'm just going to give her jack. I still have my 10 protected by another diamond, so I'm not too worried about her attacking me at diamond with an ace, for instance. So now Annie needs to think, what is it that she wants to do? And she's deciding to play with her king of diamonds. She's now playing at clubs because in contrast to me, who wants to play defensively, she actually wants to play aggressively and try to put pressure on my king very, very quickly. She doesn't get it. She's playing the 10. And some other thing that's important here, she might also want to play her high value clubs quickly, because if there are no clubs left, what I can do is trump her and get her cards. So she doesn't want to wait too long before making those points. This is something we're going to come back to in the strategy games at a later stage. Protecting my king, she's giving me the queen, I'm making my king, so I'm making 7 points, I'm very happy about this. Now, I kind of changed my whole strategy, so remember how I didn't want to play like this? The way that she's been playing and the fact that she wants to play so aggressively, so fast, makes me think that she doesn't have a very good game at spade. And that she for sure doesn't have the 9 of spade in her hand, otherwise she would have played differently. Again, sorry about this is strategy sessions. Don't worry too much about this for now. I'm mentioning it because now I changed radically my perspective. I'm convinced she doesn't have a 9 of spade, so I'm not too worried about playing the 10, which she could potentially capture with her 9. Well, I think she doesn't have it, right? So I think that I'm going to be able to take her spades now. Well, it turns out that she has the 8 of spades, so she's making, she's giving me 0 points to my trick. And now I know for sure that she doesn't have the 9. Why do I know for sure that she doesn't have the 9? When you play in the trump, you not only have to play a similar suit if you have it, you have to play a card that has a higher value if you have one. Here she doesn't have one. She doesn't have the 9, so she can play a card that has a higher value than the 10. And that's what she play. That's why she's playing the 8. So I keep attacking. I'm making my points. I'm giving her the final 7 here on her queen because I want to keep the jack. If the 9 comes up in her hand, I want to be able to attack it and to make 14 points. She's playing hearts. I'm protecting. Wow, and that's sick. As you can see, I had the 9 in my own hand, so I'm now at the strongest position you could have at spade. I have a jack and a 9. I'm definitely going to be keeping those cards to trump later at critical moments of the game to take back the control, and I'm hopefully going to try to make the 10 de der, so the last 10 points, right? Because I know that I have the strongest card of the whole game. So now she's giving me the 9 of hearts. I take the points. I give her back the control. She's taking with her queen. Don't worry too much about the strategy. We're going to go fast on this. Again, it's about getting the concepts right. Now she's playing a jack of hearts, and I unfortunately don't have any hearts in my hand. I definitely don't want to give her my 10, so a good option here is to trump. I'm trumping with my jack. I know that I have still 1 trump left at critical moments, so I'm happy to take back the control. Unfortunately, I have to give her my 10 points at diamond because she probably has the ace in her hand. She's taking a point. She's playing the queen, giving her the last diamond. She's making a last diamond shot. Now we can all see all the cards, so I'm trumping again with the 9 so that I take back the control. I make the 2 points at clubs. And I finally make the last trick at hearts, and I make the last 10 points. And as you can see, while I didn't stand a chance at no trump in the game before, I am actually ending up winning at spade. And that shows you how important your contract game is, right? Because if you make the wrong decision when you play the contract, you might end up or losing some points that you might have actually won, or being too ambitious and losing a huge amount of points. So contract playing is fundamental here. I managed to make 16 points just by setting the right contract, which was spade in my case. This comes from experience, from kind of like playing a lot and seeing a lot of hands. And I'm pretty happy about this. But here is one final concept that we need to take into consideration. At Belote, you have what are called the declarations and the announces. The declarations are, as its name says, declared at the beginning of the game. So right after you finish settling on the contract and right before you start playing the game, you have to declare the tiers and the 4s and the 5s that you have, which are associated with a fixed amount of points that you make just for having them, right? So you would start with 20 points if you have those guys in your hands. And while you play the game, you can announce your kings and queens. So when you have those guys in your hands, you make automatically 20 points. Now, if we look at the game completely opened up before we start playing, we can see that potentially, if Annie decides to settle a contract on a diamond-based suit, a diamond-based contract, sorry, for instance, by playing diamonds, no trumps, or all trumps, she has these 40 points that she would start with from having a tierce, 20 points, and a belote rebolote in her hands, right? So this is already a huge advantage that she would start with. On the other hand, because she doesn't see this king at the beginning of the game, it's kind of like it's in the face down. It would only get revealed while she plays. She doesn't have those 20 points at the beginning of the game. She has it when she opens up her game, if she's playing a spade-based contract, like spade, no trump, or all trump. What we can see here is that we settled the contract on spade, right? Remember, this is what I decided to do, and she agreed with it. She passed, so she allowed me to settle it. Now, here is what exactly she cannot do. She cannot declare her tierce, because the tierce is not at the spade contract. So she cannot make the 40 points at the beginning of the game. But when we play the game, and as you can see, if we go back to kind of like the middle stage of the game where she finds out that she has the king in her hand, she can play the king first and announce belote, basically just say out loud belote, and play at a later stage. It doesn't need to be right after, it can be any time after. She needs to play the queen and say rebelote, so that she makes the 20 points. And now the crazy thing is that if we actually settle the contract at spade, and as we saw, she announces her belote rebelote, she makes 20 points from basically those points that I couldn't see at the beginning, and she ends up winning the game by 4 points. She wins it by a small margin, but in terms of the points that she racks, she gets 170 points. And that's exactly what I told you about the risk of settling the contract. Because here, for something that I could definitely not foresee, I couldn't foresee that she had a belote rebelote in her hand. Well, I just end up losing a tremendous amount of points, right? And this is very, very risky. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the game. Obviously, we skimmed past a lot of strategy thinking, and as I told you, I promise I'm gonna start doing tutorials about strategy thinking so that you can improve your game quickly. The game is really, really fun. It has a lot of components from all of those fun games, like asymmetry of information, probabilistic thinking, like from poker and things like this. So the main concept that we're going to talk about in the strategy series are going to be playing aggressive versus defensive, evaluating quickly the board, keeping your positions and protections, reviewing reviewing the exploration of the face down cards, things like this. In terms of the contract bidding strategy, as you could see, it's very, very fundamental to get it right. We're going to spot the blockers, we're going to detect the bluffs that the opponent is doing, like to find out what's in our game. And we're going to keep the secrecy of the declarations and the announces. And finally, we're going to be managing uncertainty, right? Because there are so many cards that you don't see at the beginning of the game, you need to make sure that you manage this uncertainty properly. So we're going to review the opening, we're going to identify the tipping point at which point the game is usually or very, very certainly won or lost. We're going to be preparing the end game, right? Trying to make the 10 de der, the last 10 points, which often can mean victory or defeat. And we're going to learn how to optimize our memory management, how to make sure that we know what are the last cards at the end of the game that are in the hand of our opponent. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It was a pleasure making it. I wish you all the best on your journey to become a great belote player. And if you ever want to play against the champion, never hesitate to contact me. Bye!